You're listening to Fight Jokes About Everything, a Night Shift Radio original. For more information, visit nightshiftradio.com. It's Friday, so today we are doing part of our big crossover event for all of Night Shift Radio. So we've had Left of the Dial do the soundtrack, and we had the Superpod Hero Cast talk about the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So over on Superpod Hero Cast, they really go through the film start to finish, every scene, give a lot of cool background information, all the fun facts about filming and stuff like that. And then over on Left of the Dial, they actually reviewed the soundtrack for it, because it's just such an amazing soundtrack. Great brands, there's like Beck and like Metro and really, really cool stuff. So definitely check both those episodes out. But over here, we are going to talk about the cultural impact of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Now, when I saw this movie, I saw this as a press pass, like pre-release. And I remember going to see this movie, and there was a lot of people in the theater who, had gotten this press pass. And, most of it was, press junkies and press junkets and people that worked for some sort of media organization. I was working for Fox at the time. And the biggest thing about it is a lot of people left the theater one of two ways. You either left the theater being like, this was really dumb and I don't understand, or you left being like, this was the best movie I've ever seen. And there's a huge drift in that. And one of the biggest reasons why is because Scott Pilgrim vs. the World embraced something that a lot of people is considered very cult-like. So the sense of like the video game history of it. I mean, this is one of the first films. I mean, this is probably one of the only films still to this day that really embraced the video game iconography of that generation. I mean, there's countless incidental sounds of like Zelda and Mario and Sonic, and there's the things where like all the animations and the boom pows and everything, and it was very a mix of like live action anime and like video game culture, like kind of all meshed into one. And for most part, I would say this was probably more unique in an American setting. And there's tons of live action Japanese films that are takes on either manga or anime that were like this. This is a whole genre in Japanese film, specifically Japanese film that were based off of anime or manga. So the fact, and again, the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, it was actually Scott Pilgrim vs. the Universe. This is based off a graphic novel. And so this is, it's kind of that same sort of idea, but it was brought to American cultures using things that were popular to America. So it just became, this whole animal on itself. Now you're probably saying like, oh yeah, wow, this is crazy. Of course, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Well, obviously it did fantastic at the box office. No, actually it did terrible at the box office, earning just shy of 10 million on its opening weekend, only 31 total, which, seems like a lot, but it was like an $85 million budget. I mean, think of all the stars in it. Granted, most of the people were not as stars as they are now. I would say almost everyone that was in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World went on to be substantially more famous. I mean, Chris Evans is a really big pick on that. He was already pretty well known for a few things. He had just come off of Not Another Teen Movie and a few other things. He was just about to do Snowpiercer. So he had some things under his belt. Michael Cera was just coming off of Arrested Development. Mary Elizabeth Winstead had just come off a Tarantino film. Who else? Jason Schwartzman is kind of like that indie darling. He had done tons of movies right around that time. So like everybody knew about Jason Schwartzman too. I mean, you had a cast that was primed and ready to go. They were all right on the tipping point of being, as fantastic as they are in their field. And, now we know that everybody's, gone off to do a lot of crazy things, except Michael Cera. So Michael Cera has done some good things, but he has not been in a movie in a very long time. Hopefully he has something coming up. But fun fact about this, which I'm sure the Superpod guys actually covered, but the original casting for Michael Cera's character, the main character of Scott Pilgrim, was actually meant to be Seth Rogen. That would have been weird. But I think Michael Cera is a better fit. But anyways, we're going to talk about the cultural impact of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Now, I wanted to say that as a result of this, because this film came out in 2010, that in 2011 or 12, we saw a dramatic increase in the number of kids born named Ramona. But that was not the case, actually. That Ramona name was not in the top 50 for the next 5 years, actually at all, of baby names in America. So no big impact in that sense, but everybody now refers to the Ramona Flowers character, which I guess is a nicer way of saying the Manic Pixie Dream Girl character, because it's like, yeah, but it's a specific person, so it's cuter. But it is, everyone's like, oh, you're the Ramona Flowers of this. Now, we'll go a little bit of the individual aspects of it, but I think one of the biggest things that I think has a lasting effect on the culture, and specifically that sort of like indie gamer culture of Scott Pilgrim, is a few of the lines. Now, the one thing about this movie that was really great is that there was a lot of really great short hot quips that happen, and they're so quotable. They're just these great one-liners, and this really harkens back to the manga writing, where you're given a whole page to really show a scene happen, punching the moon or whatever like that, but you really only get so much room for dialogue that doesn't take up the space of your art. So those really important one-shot quips are really, really important. One of the ones I always criticize this one, but it was kind of right around the same time, is, we have Amy, the drummer of the band, who says, great story, man. But at that time, now this is, a year or two, around that, sort of teeter-tottering around that year that this film came out, cool story, bro, was the big popular saying. Now, Cool Story Bro started before this. This film was being filmed in 2009, so it was right around the same time. But my thoughts is that Great Story Man was probably the Canadian way of doing it, so maybe that it was, it seemed fine. But there's a lot of things like, I think about like Roxy. One of the things she says is like, I'm sorry, darling, I just cashed my last rain check. And he's like, what's that from? She's like, my brain. I say that all the time. And I know tons of people that say things like that. Be like, oh, what's that from? My brain. There's those little bitty lines. That's great. One of the characters we talk about too is Anna Kendrick. So Anna Kendrick, obviously was still kind of entrenched in Twilight, or about to be entrenched in Twilight, and then eventually went off to Pitch Perfect and all the other movies that she's done. Her character of just the constantly leaving. We have Aubrey Plaza, who was in this, who is just in the midst of being on Parks and Rec too. So you have these figures, where the great thing is, this is the weird thing, but the great thing. So the great thing about this movie is that it definitely made all of the female characters be larger than life. The unfortunate part is, and again, this is still one of my favorite movies, but the unfortunate part is that every woman in this film is a character that was given to make Scott be a thing or do a thing. Amy as the girl drummer of the band, like she exists just to show that Scott has a weird history with breaking up with women. Knives Chow, played by Ellen Wong, who is absolutely fantastic in Glow. If you haven't watched Glow, you absolutely need to watch it. She is great in it. But Ellen Wong, Knives Chow's character, I mean, she is this like, overly idolized character about the fact that she's in high school. She's Chinese. She goes to a Catholic schoolgirl with the outfits. Like it's these like idolizations of her, but it's not about her personally. Like she exists just to show that like Scott has trouble growing up and moving on and having an adult relationship, and more specifically having an adult relationship with a female that he finds intimidating. Along comes Ramona Flowers, and we all know the the Ramona Flowers type. Whether you are the Ramona Flowers type, male, female, non-binary, or the Ramona Flowers type. Everybody knows that type, but we all know that they have way more depth than is given in this movie. But the Ramona Flowers in this movie is just, Mary Elizabeth Winstead does such a great job in this because she exists exactly as she need to. You know, she the whole first half of the film, she exists to kind of be like, hey, like, I don't really see what the big deal is. This is just how things are. And he's like, I don't know what's happening, you know? And that's about Scott's journey. But the idea behind a Ramona Flowers, it gave like one step up of that manic pixie dream girl. And I think, you know, we have seen this in a lot of films and video game, you know, arcs and stuff like this now, is that everybody's kind of being compared back to that Ramona Flowers. So everyone's being like, oh, well, are they a Ramona Flower? They're kind of like Ramona Flowers. So we see that the impact of that specific character has. And I think it's very interesting that a lot of times you'll find people compared to everybody other than Scott, which is hilarious to me, but also I think that's kind of the point, you know, is that Scott is so unassuming, that he's only interesting because of all the company he keeps. You know, I mean, even young Neil has an interesting arc to him. So when it comes to the actual aspect of that, you know, we see inside of this, all, like I said, all of the video game references that are pushed in. That's something that was on the cusp of exploding. Like, Twitch is just now getting running at this time. This is 2010, 2011. You know, so like, gamer culture wasn't what it is today, and I think, and I would say that it definitely owes itself to this film, kind of pushing it more to the mainstream. Now, you know, the thing is that this movie lost out in the box office to The Expendables and Eat, Pray, Love. Now, obviously, Eat, Pray, Love, we're going to put that in a little separate category. That was already an insanely popular book. It was bound to do well, but The Expendables is, you know, one of those examples of a movie that was expendable. You know, like, yeah, they made 3 of those movies, but did you even remember that they made 3 of those movies? You probably didn't. If you remember that Scott Pilgrim came out, yes, you do. Do you remember that last year over the summer there was an original cast read through of the entire script again for charity on Zoom? Yeah, you probably remember that. Do you remember Sylvester Stallone talking about making an all-female Expendables? No, that also happened last year, where he talked about that in an interview. And of course you don't remember that, because the cultural impact of the Expendables versus Scott Pilgrim versus the World were completely different. This was like a slow burn film. And this is still, I put this film up as kind of like my my intro to Michael Fight movie, because not only the writing of it, the editing of it, the flow of the film, the references inside of it, the music in general, these are the things that I use as like a threshold to be like, you know, hey, this is me. This is something that defines my personality. Like, can you jive with this? And that's, you know, and it's used very well and has never done me wrong. So what do you guys think? Hopefully you checked out the other Night Shift Radio shows on this. And of course, if you're watching over on YouTube, please subscribe. I super appreciate it. And don't forget to like, comment, and share. It's very, very helpful. But then, of course, head on over to the Super Pod Hero Cast, hear them break down the entire movie of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and then head over to Left of the Dial and listen to them talk about the soundtrack. It's absolutely fantastic soundtrack. I still want to hear the Brie Larson version of the Clash at Demon Head stuff. Like, I just want that whole... I just want a whole Clash at Demon Head album. That's all I want. Following Brie Larson and hearing her play guitar and sing is just not enough. It's not enough. I need my Clash at Demon Head. But yeah, so definitely let me know what you think. You can, of course, tweet at me at @TheMichaelFight. I'm also on Instagram at MichaelFight. And for more information, you can visit nightshiftradio.com. All right, guys, thanks a lot for joining me, and we will see you on Monday.